Well, hello and welcome. Well, what a beautiful topic we have today, Anas versus Martin. Isn't it amazing that Martin Hamitu comes up with this beautiful write-up, and somewhere in the write-up he indicates that at the time when he was in office, during the days of President Mills, God bless his soul, they thought of and sort of commissioned Anas to go and investigate the judiciary, because at the time the government had the problem with the judiciary. They thought the judiciary was against the government, and therefore they instituted. Anas comes up and says, no, you didn't do that. I did that on my own. I didn't need any help, and I did it all by myself. Indeed, his boss, Kweku Baako, also comes in and says, yes, Anas did this story all on his own. And indeed, all stories which Anas has done, which is being aided by government or any department, they give them acknowledgement all throughout on the audio visuals, interviews and everything, and that this was just done by Anas. So there's the banter going on. But there's one thing which I think we are all missing. I'm going to call for an interview we had with Kweku Baako, but after that we need to come back to what Martin said. Hold on. Here we are chasing corrupt judges, people who took a goat, those who took 1,000 cedis. But he has given us evidence where a Chief Justice, Attorney General has taken, Deputy Attorney General took 400,000 was paid into his wife's account. Nothing was done. What happened? We transferred him. So indeed, if we're going to fight corruption, should we start from the 400,000 or should we start from the 1,000? This conversation is going to be beautiful, but we'll just go and listen to what Kweku Baako has to say. My name is Nana Sakwao, and this is PM Express.
Now, how do you respond to these issues? I mean, I'm sure you've monitored the discussions or what the former Attorney General has put out regarding the investigations that have been conducted by Anas Aremi Anas into the judicial corruption expose. How did you take it when you saw the article?
Well, relative to the aspects that concern Anas and Tiger Eye, because there are other elements of that piece which I have no problem with, but those dealing with Anas and Tiger Eye with particular emphasis on the judicial corruption saga, I think the former Attorney General, who is a very good friend of mine, is a long-standing comrade, actually got it all wrong. And I have indicated that to him personally.
Which aspects in particular do you say?
Substantive points. He makes the point about the project was commissioned by government. That's an obvious untruth. If he challenges, then it's incumbent on him to provide us with something of evidential value to back up his claim.
Well, then he says that he's a former interior minister, he's a former attorney general. He suggests that it was during his time that this project was commissioned.
That's unfortunate. He's a man of integrity. And I'm wondering, just because you were in office in 2009 to 2011 will constitute sufficient grounds for you to begin to speculate, and I use the word adversity, he's speculating that whatever they may have discussed whilst in office constitutes a proof of his assertion today. Can't be. It's unsustainable. He left office when? 2011. This project began 2013 and ended 2015. It has absolutely no connection with government. But you see, let's be very honest with ourselves. Any time there had been government involvement or sponsorship or commissioning with Anas and Tiger Eye on any project, Anas had not hidden that fact, both in radio and TV interviews as well as in the audiovisual documentaries that are put out there. The acknowledgement is made relative to the fact that government had had something to do with this. Anytime he had had collaboration with state agencies, and this didn't start with the Mills or Mahama administration. It began under the Kufuor administration. He had always indicated it publicly. Sometimes if you watch those documentaries, you see the acknowledgements. And the radio and TV interviews he's had, he puts it out there. there are many other projects that were independent of either government or state agencies. So what is his beef? It is incumbent, I repeat, on my good friend Martin Amidu to provide us with something of evidential value to support his case, or he might as well, in a very honest, humble way, retract and apologize.
Are you saying that Anas didn't get any support at all from the government agencies in all this, in this particular judicial corruption expose?
Government didn't know about it. Government had no knowledge about it.
About the Chief Justice?
No, the Chief Justice also was just presented with the evidence when the time occasioned it, when it became necessary to provide the Chief Justice with the evidence. And now let me find out what is being contested, what is in contention. Is it that there's a suspicion that there was government or higher judicial authority involvement, or is the evidence that have been produced to indicate that corruption exists in the judiciary?
Right.
Where is the bone of contention?
It moves from, the article moves on, or Mr. Amidu moves on from the point where he says that this thing was commissioned by government or commissioned under the, Mills administration.
Which is a lie. I'm sorry, a lie is too strong. Say an obvious untruth.
So then there's a suggestion that because government commissioned it, government has foreknowledge of what is coming out and essentially would suppress some aspects of the information.
But for my respect for Martin Amidu and the fact that I have known him for a very long time, I would have said this should be coming from an uninitiated mind, somebody who's hugely inexperienced, but he's not. He's a very well-organized, disciplined, experienced politician and lawyer. And as I said, I have known him for a very long time, so this is a shocker to me. But let me read to you excerpts of the official position of Tiger Eye relative to this selectivity challenge.
Right. Which information Anas has posted on his Facebook page?
Yes, he says alleged selectivity. Here, Mr. Amidu alleges that there's evidence that some judges were also offered and accepted bribes but are still working because we have not submitted any petition to the president due to video recording hitches. He claims that we have notified the Chief Justice and Judicial Council of these. This is contrived falsehood, and we say so for the following reasons. First, and for Mr. Amidu's information, we submitted all 500 or so hours of our forming to the authorities unedited. If Mr. Amidu wants to watch and verify that, he can apply to the relevant authorities to arrange a viewing with his technical experts. Second, in the instance where when we lost or were unable to procure footage, we still submitted the names of the affected judges, almost 20 of them, to the authorities under the cover of a separate letter with a request that they should still be investigated. We have not made these names public because that might jeopardize investigations that we have requested. And recently, one of the judges was purged of the charge.
Because they said the video didn't quite implicate.
Because the video, the quality of the video couldn't match the transcripts that have been submitted. So once the video, it was virtually like failure of technology. You did a recording, all right, you submitted a petition relative to that judge. But when they went through it, it didn't work. And the Tiger has accepted that in good faith. But they think that when the clerk, who was the conduit, gets his chance to be interrogated, that issue may come back. So at this stage, well, they've accepted a verdict. The truth of the matter is that Martin is not providing evidence to back his claim. Apart from that, there is nothing like that. You see, you can't provide evidence to back a non-existent situation.
Now, it doesn't mean, or by this, you're saying that there's nothing or there's no other recording apart from the 500 hours which have been submitted to the Judicial Commission?
There's none. But the point is that the man who did the work with his team are telling you that, and you say no. So you provide the evidence. It may be an invitation into the realm of absurdity.
And then he also talks about the fact that there's some evidence also having to do with members of the executive and parliament that should be coming out. which is not out, and he's suggesting that that's another issue with the selectivity he was talking about.
He's embarking on a journey of speculation.
I have heard you speak on radio.
Has Tiger Eye, that's what began, has Tiger Eye publicly spoken to that?
No, it hasn't.
They made any disclosure to that effect?
But it's interesting that
step by step. Has Tiger Eye done that? Have they? No. Has Anas done that? No. Has Kweku Bako done that? Yes.
Okay. What I'd like to draw your attention to is when I heard you the first time speak about this issue and say it was on Peace FM that this was going to come up. Yes, I posted a tweet, yes, and I tagged Anas in it, and he favorited the tweet, yes, which to me suggests that, okay, he sort of endorses the tweet.
Yes, but wait, that's a key point. I, in my personal capacity on radio, dropped hints. I think it was even an act of indiscretion in terms of timing, but I did so, and I'm not running away from it. But what makes anybody think that a project that is incomplete should be put out in the public domain? Why is Martin talking the way he's talking? Does he have evidence that that project, which Tiger hasn't spoken to, which Anas hasn't spoken to, but which I have spoken to in terms of hints, does he know the status of the project? This one we are discussing took 2 years. Does he know when the legislative one started? Does he know when it will end? Has Anas ever made public results of his project when it wasn't completed? So again, he has no foundation to stand on. He is talking as if a project has been completed and kept under wraps. First of all, government is not commissioning anybody, including Tiger or Anas, to do any work on Parliament. Government hasn't done that. So government does not own the project. And if government does not own the project, government cannot compromise the integrity of the project or its release. Those who are doing the project, if they haven't finished, why should they put it out in the public domain? So it is actually a non-issue, in the sense that, look, what Martin should have done is to do double checking to find out this project that Kweku Bako hinted on, has it been completed? If it's been completed, why is it not being put out there? But the man proceeds on an assumption, on a speculative journey, that there is such a project commissioned by government and is being hidden. Pathetic. And I'm saying I'm restrained in how I'm looking at these things because of my respect for Martin and the work he has done in this country when it comes to anti-corruption. I don't want to throw the baby away with the bathwater. But there is no foundation. There is no project, completed project on the legislature that has been commissioned, that was commissioned by government, and that is being kept away from the public. There is nothing of that sort.
But away from the fact that you're asking him to provide evidence, Martin Amidu has, we all know him to be the anti-corruption crusader, and he's done some fantastic work, yes, as far as fighting corruption is concerned. And people are inclined to want to believe the things he says.
No, there are people who are inclined to do so, are entitled to do that. The cases Amidu won in terms of anti-corruption, he went to a court of law, court of records, provided evidence. He didn't just shout. Martin just didn't shout. In fact, I'm inviting him to move further and provide evidence, further and better particulars to support this claim, because that is his character, that is his track record. So yes, people may want to say this is serious because it's coming from Martin Amidu. Fair deal, I accept that. But then, because it's Martin Amidu, he doesn't have to stop where he stopped. He should bring the evidence. And I can assure you that with all my respect for him, I can challenge him that he has none, because there's nothing that exists to that effect.
Apart from the suppression and that he's claimed, he also talks about another form of suppression where he says that the issues of corruption that have come out that the president and the executive is supposed to act on, which they have conveniently ignored.
No,
how
that's not part of my...
All right.
That I've said, that article otherwise is a positive article. You want to discuss with me the Tiger Eye and Anas angle, and that is the angle I'm sticking to. Okay? All the other things. He mentioned some specifics.
Yeah.
Yes, if you can mention those specifics, and let's see whether I have a point on that.
Right. So
I can't recollect immediately.
Okay. So the specifics he talks about has to do with what happened in the Woyome issue and the fact that Woyome is supposed to make some monies available, pay back some monies to.
100% right. I've shared that position all the time. I supported him in the campaign on the Woyome thing, his court going and all the rest. So the Woyome thing, whatever he says there, I'm with him. I know the Supreme Court has given Woyome some time to pay up. We're all waiting to see that. But there are a lot of other things. There are people who should have been dragged into the net. And I'm sure that's why maybe he's referring to the Samuel Nikwe Tete and the Betty Moles, Batmu Drew and all the rest. Yes, he has a point there. I'm with him on those things. And those things, he's established his case with evidence. And many of them we had articulated before he even came into the picture. I don't have a problem with that.
One other aspect of his article, or I think the crux of his article, is to suggest that Anas Erme Anas is an anti-corruption-preneur, essentially fighting corruption for profit. And he makes reference to this when he talks about the fact that Anas gets commissioned to do work. Yes, in this particular instance, in judicial corruption expose, you're saying that he wasn't commissioned, but you admit that in other instances he's been commissioned.
Tiger Eye is a private investigative agency. If you go onto their website, you see it there. They do all sorts of investigations for different companies, you know, Ashanti Gold, MTN, so many other institutions are their clients. And some of them are done for payment. Why not?
So he raises issues of ethics there.
Where? Private
anti-corruption-preneur.
Oh, what is he talk? I mean, please, he can coin his own phraseology and live with it. A private investigative agency registered as such. Is Martin suggesting that the laws of this country or the ethics of journalism go against that? Is he saying that? He should bring the evidence to that effect. So please, let's focus. You see, as I said, I'm restraining myself. He himself has fought very well in terms of fighting corruption.
And in this case, he maintains that he doesn't fight for profit.
Yeah, but is he Anas? Does he run a private investigative agency? Does he? So we are comparing apples with oranges. The whole thing doesn't make sense to me in this context. Martin Amidu pursues his cause in a different way. Anas does this in a different way, and it's public. The Tiger Eye is a registered private investigative agency. Okay? And international journalism has this branch of undercover journalism as well. If he doesn't know, he should get educated on it. It's as simple as that. So I don't get it. I think what they were doing complements each other. That's the way I was thinking. That what Martin does, which is good for Ghana, is as good as what Anas is doing, and that the two put together actually advances the fight against corruption and good governance. I mean, for a promotion of good governance.
You don't see any ethics issues there
Where is
at all?
the ethics? Even from purely journalistic point of view, go and check our code of ethics, both the Media Commission one and the National Media Commission print guidelines, as well as the GJA code of ethics. When you are dealing with issues of public health, public order, and other criminal activities, subterfuge is allowed. Subterfuge is allowed. It's part of our code of ethics. If I am investigating a criminal phenomenon, and I just go and I tell the people, though, I'm here to investigate this matter. You think if Anas had gone out there and use the conventional classical methodology in investigating this judicial corruption, or all the other things he's done, the cocoa smuggling, the port thing, you think if he had adopted the classical conventional methodology outlined in journalism, he would have succeeded? I mean, please, let's be realistic. Let's not be naive. That's why Anas has specialized in those areas and the methodologies he's adopted so as to be able to expose crime, you know, in the public interest. If people are prepared to challenge him on the methodology and forget the results, they are entitled to that. I think Anas won't waste his time. There have been many. It didn't start today. This question of his ethics and his methods didn't start today. It's been so for almost the last 10 years. And the decision is that ignore them. Find out how your investigative projects are having an impact on society, the larger society. That is where Anas's focus is. If he was going to look at the questions being raised relative to the ethics and methodologies, I'm sure he would have given up long ago. He doesn't care a bit about that. Take it from me.
And I assume he doesn't care about all that. He must care about the article that Martin Amidu has
Well,
published.
the Tiger has put out their response. We want the public to judge which one carries more weight. That's it. What can Anas do? He can't compel the public to take his line. He cannot compel Martin Amidu to take his line. What he can do is to put out to the public that this is my stand. You judge. He will continue with his projects.
The other issue that would come up or would get people wondering is the funding that or how Anas gets access to the kind of funds which enables him to do these projects. They cost quite a bit of money.
If anybody thinks he's not paying his tax or he's stealing public funds, the person is entitled to go out there and report to the appropriate state agencies. The man on his website, you see jobs that he does, clients that he has in terms of the Tiger Eye. It's in the website. If people want to check what jobs is done for those companies and how much it was paid, they are entitled to go and do that research. Nobody has reported that Anas has stolen his cash. No state agency has come out to say that Anas has defrauded them. So those who are raising those questions, I don't see their point. Are they questioning the output? Or they are just bringing suspicions to the fore for us to use to interrogate something that doesn't exist? That's diversionary.
Are you in a position to say when the rest of the work is done on Parliament and the executive will be coming up?
I can't tell. The timelines, as I said, it was an indiscreet disclosure on my part. In fact, an act of gross indiscretion. I think it was out of over enthusiasm. We're talking, analyzing, and I made that slip. It was a slip. I later realized that I had slipped because Anas never announces ahead of time the specific projects. He will say that, look, something is coming, some big thing is coming and all that. He will say that, okay? I'm told Martin is even making a point that there was some Peace FM online article that Anas had indicated that President Mills had assigned him to do something and that more was coming. And he's linking it to the judicial corruption thing. That's pathetic deduction.
Do you think the slip on your part or the indiscretion on your part will undermine the work that's yet to come?
That's what I mean it was indiscretion, because the work is incomplete. It's ongoing in various areas. So when you go and say that publicly, you can even alert the people in those areas. Do you understand? To get alert and to be careful. But of course, you see, when you are investigating the legislature, the location is not just the House of Parliament. People don't realize that. Apart from the Parliamentary Service Board, which is located there physically, so that there are many things Parliament does elsewhere. They hold all sorts of events elsewhere. Am I right? You know that?
Yes.
Workshops, this, that, all sorts of things happen there. So when you are talking of legislative, scrutinizing the legislature, you are not talking of only the location known as a House of Parliament. Whatever it is, it was still indiscreet that out of the discussions we were having on radio, I dropped that hint.
So that was events that happened today. That's Kwaku Baku's response to Martin Amidu's letter that he wrote today. We're going to go for a break. When I come back, I have in the studio lawyer Yao Pong, who's a legal practitioner and also a lecturer at Central University. I'm sure his students must love seeing him on the screen all the time. I love him because anytime I'm stuck with any legalese things, he comes in to help me. So we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we start the conversation. I think this is one of those that would go beyond one show. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying tuned. Exposing corruption, Martin versus Anas. What a big story today. Let me give you the WhatsApp number, which is 0560 800 000. 0560 800 000. So you can send your WhatsApp in, and then I'll read it as we go along. And lawyer,
yes.
Let me just get your preliminary comments on Martin's letter before we just deal in specific. I mean, it's so big, I don't think we can tackle it all, but just the preliminary comments on the letter, and then we move on to something specific that we need to talk about.
Well, good evening. Now, first of all, look at the form of the paper or the piece. And I'm the person who uses language as my tool of trade. I am just awed. I mean, it's just amazing how he can put words together. And you remember the word gargantua, even though it's been in the dictionary for a long time. It was the way he used it in the context that really made a lot of people even sometimes refer to him as such. So whatever the content may be, me as a person who uses language and maybe who likes literature, I think it's a wonderful piece. Whatever faults the content may attract, it is a wonderful thing. And I think everybody should read it, at least for the language. And usually the way he ends his papers, you just cannot but admire him for it. As for the content, I think as he himself acknowledges, first of all, his own was a critique of what somebody has done. He also expects that others will also critique his. That is how we build on knowledge. If we don't do that, then we just accept one person's opinion, and society cannot build on one person's say-so or opinion. We all have to be tolerant. We accept dissenting opinion. And once we dissent, we should expect that other people will also dissent. And what we don't do is to color the opinions of people with words that are not decorous, words that may cast a slur on their personality. That one is not acceptable. And if you are also critique or criticize, as the case may be, you also take it in your stride. We listen, we observe, and we watch what people, by their language, whether by their acts or words, say about us. We accept it and we build on it. I think that is the only way by which we can build a just society. I'm happy that this discourse is coming up. I have always been surprised that even though most people, journalists, I'm not one, but most journalists accept that what Anas is doing is actually novel, at least as far as our local journalism practice is concerned. And I think that when he traveled recently, in one of his speeches, he was reacting to people's criticism of the kind of journalism. But he told them that at least I've done some job for BBC and other international organizations. At that time, you people didn't complain. But the fact that people ask questions, it is important. In this country, you hardly heard any expert in journalism, hardly, who wondered whether, or even expressed a dissenting opinion about the style and the mood of it. So to get at least one person, because whatever it is, we are human. If everybody says what you are doing is right, then it means what you are doing is wrong. That's the way I see it. Because we are not angels, we are not omnipotent, omniscient. That is why even with judges, by their training and even their orientation, they make mistakes. They commit what we call grave errors in their judgment. And that is why we recognize that sometimes it's just one judge, 3 judges, 5, 7, 11, sometimes as the case may be. And even some have said that if the Supreme Court in the UK had another court above it, it may set aside its decisions as well, because we are humans. So how is it possible that we can just accept totally a procedure adopted by someone? In that case, we are not even helping the person adopting the procedure. And I'm happy that, at least with the explanation, the discourse, we are even shedding more light on this matter. And since when we thought it was dying out, other areas have been raised. Of course, he has coined a new word because it was something prenatal.
Yes, yes. I'll find it for you.
So this is how we build on society. It's as if people, we don't want to talk about it. You see, these areas, let's leave it. We are not helping the people engage in this discourse. It is only by our reasonable criticism of it, or what may be termed constructive, even though that is subjective criticism. That is the only way. They themselves may even sit back and find out, can't we do things better than maybe we have done?
Let's quickly look at the disagreement, because Martin seems to be very confident that during his time of office, between himself and the president, or at that time, there was the idea, or there was the commission that will go out there and investigate the judiciary because of our relationship between the government then and the judiciary. Tiger IPI is also very confident that no, we started this thing on our own. 2013, when President Mill was no more, you were no more in office. Why is he so certain that he commissioned that?
Well, what even struck me was the language used there. It appears that at that time, around 2009, there was not a cordial relationship between the executive and the judiciary, if I got the language right. And that it appears there was the need, as it were, to deal, quote and unquote, with the judiciary. I mean, around that time, if we all recollect, the state seemed to be losing a lot of cases in court. And even the Attorney General then came out after she said that they had a dossier of covering about 50 or so past government functionaries and so on. And then a number of them were being thrown out. Then it became very terrible. Around that same time, incidentally, a case that I gave to my students today, remember the Muntaka issue?
Sure.
When a judge, one of the judges sitting on one of the cases, the husband was, as I understand or I hear, an ambassador in that government. And yet, the wife sat on one of the cases and said the president's decision of asking the national security to set up a committee to investigate that Muntaka issue, which then led to the dismissal of the so-called whistleblowers and exonerating the person who was actually the subject matter of the investigation. The judge said that it was wrong. The president didn't have the power to set up any such committee to investigate. That the Civil Service Act is clear on how disciplinary action should be taken. So you could see that when it is also because the way we perceive the other time I said that the government was uncomfortable because they think that cases against the state are cases against the government. No. And also because it is possible that the decisions to take cases to court, especially criminal cases, were not informed by legal reasoning, but rather matters other than law, maybe political considerations, were the ones that were informing whether or not these cases should be taken to court. And when you don't found your cases on your understanding of the law and you take it to court, well, there is an independent arbiter and there is your colleague who is just looking at the law and nothing more pretentious. So that is why it was happening. So it is quite revealing that if I get the language well, then it is quite revealing that there was a seeming, at least at the level of the executive, that's how the executive perceived the judiciary, that the judiciary was embarrassing them because they were losing cases. So there was the need for some kind of investigation. As to whether it was that culminated into the 2013, as we understand, and as began, the 2013 commencement of this is left to be resolved. I think there is a disagreement. But obviously from Martin Amidu and where he was and where he is now, there was that kind of, and again I stand corrected, but there was that kind of mistrust, if that is a better word, at least as the executive perceived the judiciary. And for me then, it would have made, if indeed this investigation started, then the foundation would have been a very weak one that is built on sand.
Why would you say that?
Yes, because then if it was because of a perceived mistrust from the executive against the judiciary, then any investigation that would be founded on it or premise on it would not have the good faith as the foundation. But I wish that Anas has, or his company has indicated, their investigation started in 2013, and perhaps if President Mills then had wanted any investigation against the judiciary or in respect of the judiciary and their officers to be conducted, that had nothing to do with them. Maybe that's how
could it have been that, look, it was discussed, but it never took off before the president passed, and Manas thought, well, if I think this is a good idea, let's go on our own and go and do it. Could that be why Martin is so sure? Now, see, the reason why I say that is that, we can't underestimate Martin Amidu. He's an intelligent man. He's held very high office. Yeah. He won't just sleep and wake up and say, let me guess something and put it out there. He must be standing on something. I'm not saying, definitely. Yeah. So,
but I mean, you know that we are human. He's subject to human frailty. It's possible that he may be perceiving or combining two things at the same time. Perhaps with the explanation from Tiger Eye, he may put bits and pieces together and get the puzzle together and say that, perhaps I may have been mistaken. It's also possible that there is something that he knows, or perhaps this may have started, it was truncated, because I think that once I have seen a few people you speak to, a lot of them actually happened in 2014 and even 2015, the investigation. Some of them even as late, or as immediate as July this year. Some of them. You see, so it is possible that it may have been conceived then, but it wasn't commenced.
Because of time, let's move on to something which hasn't got any possibility or alleged or anything. These are facts. And I'll just read here, then let you comment. It says, firstly, is it right and just for the President and the Attorney General to reward and transfer a chief state attorney suspected of corruption involving the payment of a whopping amount of $400,000 by check into his wife's account at the Agricultural Development Bank? At the time, he was the responsible officer in the Alfred Agbesi Wyoming scandal, in which an unconstitutional payment of over $51 million was made by the government to Wyoming. The culprit has been rewarded with a transfer to head the Upper West office, while the judge who takes less than 1,000 cedis is rewarded, removed, debarred, and prosecuted. Paradoxically, Mr. Samuel Nikwe Tete, the chief state attorney, was on the list for consideration to High Court bench at the time. Secondly, the government has and is presiding over further rot in the critical office of the Attorney General, which is the lead executive authority for the prosecution of all crimes, including corruption. I refer to my press statement to the media 15 September 2014 entitled President John Mahama's government cannot lead the fight against narcotic drugs in ECOWAS, in which I called attention to Nikwe Tete and his wife's 400,000 golden handshake and the reward by transfer to head a region. Now, I think this is very heavy.
Well, it is. It is indeed. Especially the one about the continuous rot, as it were, at the Attorney General's department itself. And
where the layman stand is, I mean, a crime is a crime, whether it's 1 cedi or 400,000. But to the layman, again, 400,000 is a lot. So if you're going to punish anybody, let's at least start with 400,000. That's what Martin is saying.
No, but I'd rather see him saying something else, which a view I also fully share. That if I have a case before a judge and there's a possibility that I'm able to give him 2,000 cedis, it's money from my pocket that I have given to that judge. If I'm a public officer and I have to I'm responsible for the construction or to award contract for the construction of a hospital. Or let's say a road. And I take 10% of it. And for that matter, a road which had the initial conception of a dual carriage, just a single carriage lane is made. And then because of that, it becomes accident prone and people die. Number one, that money I took is state money. It is the people of Ghana's money, money that belongs to the people of Ghana. But that is not an individual person's money. And that money was not given to you voluntarily. Unlike the one who has given that money to the judge. And that money had been taken, and as a result of it, the consequence is that the road has become accident prone. Or if you can observe, a lot of the potholes around. Some of these roads were made just last year. How is it possible? And people certified it and paid fully for it, I can guess. So that is how I think he's trying to, he is not glorifying a judge taking 1,000 and probably maybe not giving justice the way it should be. We are all human. But what about the one who has stolen state money? And that is how I think he's trying to rationalize it. Because whether you steal a goat, of course, when you steal a goat, it's called stealing. But when a public officer steals state money, misappropriation, expropriation, misapplication, that is how we call it. That one we don't even see corruption, embezzlement. We don't even call it stealing. So it will attract the wrath of the people. So that is how I see it. Otherwise, he is not, as I understand it, justifying the crime because of the amount involved.
Well, it goes on to say that you need to remove, the moth in your eye before you go and look at, So, I mean, basically saying that, if the president is serious in attacking crime, they should have been chasing this money well before these crimes came in. Then you can say that, listen, I am consistent with my crime chasing. How can he be true?
It's not just that. Then I filed the view that, look, the executive cannot even take credit from this. Because the growing evidence is that when allegations, of course, we use the big word, malfeasance, and so on, with sometimes that pure stealing of state money, is made against a government functionary, the first thing we do is that we set up a commission of inquiry. One of the most abused facilities granted us under the Constitution. We set up commission of inquiry. We know that by some crude method, there is something called a white paper. That white paper will be used, and it can set aside the recommendations made against special government functionaries. And then, if we don't want to be further embarrassed, at least in the open, some of them will go and shed crocodile tears. And after that, just a second, the white paper then clears all the recommendations, sometimes even including recovery of monies and so on. And then the person is asked, tap on the shoulder, and asked to come to hold other state positions, and we continue to pay them. This matter was also serious enough, related to national interest, that in appropriate case, a commission of inquiry should have been set up. And the Council of State can recommend for it to be set up by the President, and also Parliament by the required resolution that they will pass. If this had been members of the executive, I can bet that a commission of inquiry would have been set up. And at the end of the day, we embarrass our foes and we put our own behind and just cover them. I think that is one particular area that we find it quite disheartening. And I think he's pointing out.
Well, I know he was pointing out that, but then with the Wyoming case, I mean, what else could the president have done? They've dragged him through court. Wyoming itself is taking him through court. The court has asked them to collect the money. I mean, you don't expect the executives to, come out of the office to go and get the money. They are functionaries who have to go and get it. I mean, if they are not doing it, what more does the president do?
Right, but that case, I think that will go more for the Attorney General than the executive, to be frank with you, because when it comes to the exercise of those powers granted the Attorney General in Article 88, not even the President, with all the powers, can exercise any of it. That is why even when a criminal case is pending before a court, the Attorney General can issue what we call nolli prosequi to say the state is no more interested in prosecuting. That is, the judge cannot insist that, well, he's before me, I think he has committed the offense, so I will continue. No, as far as I can tell, maybe with some exception, I don't know. So, in that case, I think that they were expecting an Attorney General to actually go to court and recover the monies, because it's a state money. You cannot use private facilities. So, for example, then if it had been me, myself, my property would have been seized if I had it. My account would have been attached from the bank, and money is collected. What I still understand and find a bit strange is that we were told that the gentleman's accounts were attached when the criminal investigations were going on. We expect that if some monies were in it, immediately, and since the criminal matter is ended, and I understand there is an appeal, but in the meantime, that account should have been attached, paid into a secured account, and transferred to the state, because the Supreme Court has held finally that whatever was paid should be refunded. And the last time, I think they warned that if he doesn't pay, they will bring him under the Article 2 procedure, where you can even go to jail for about 10 years. And I think they promised that by Christmas, they would have finished paying. Let us all observe. It is just left with about 1 month, or let's say 1.5 months to the end of the year. Let's see whether it will be paid. And that is why he feels that he's been let down, that after going through all this, and had to, he had to sue the Attorney General, because he was a plaintiff, and the Attorney General had to be defended, together with the gentleman and the companies and so on. So let us look at these things, and I think he has a genuine concern that if we really want to show that we want to fight corruption, for me, not just when after it has been committed, we should put enough mechanisms in place to even prevent it in the first place. Otherwise, we will be joking.
I'm going to take a quick break here, and then when I come back, another thing that Martin Hamidou raises is why they granted immunity to Anas. I find that quite bizarre. And then I'll catch up with your messages as time is running out. It's 0560 800 000. 0560 800 000. I'll catch up with your messages, so don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying. Let me try and catch up with your messages that are coming in. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of messages. So hold on, let me start from here. Yudin Adin says, I think Anas as well as Abdul Malik have responded and made their case. And Martin Hamidou. If Martin Hamidou has any other evidence to this effect, should provide for better discussion to advance on this issue. And then I go here, and this one says, this is from SS Mahamadou in Tamale. Wow, Martin Hamidou's word against Tiger IPI and Kwaku Banku. Who do we believe? This latest article will bring to fore his motive for doing what he does. Let me go here. This is from Alexia, young patriot in Gauso. It says, Anas and Tiger Eye is doing a great job for Ghana. Martin Hamidou, please, this one you are wrong. Even though you still hero of fighting corruption. This is integrity versus integrity. Let me skip this one. Let me go here. Nana, please let Yao understand that judges are not supposed to be humans, because huge authorities are vested in them. Let me go here. This one says, from Jesong Rashid in Wa, and isn't it time we separate the office of the Attorney General from the Ministry of Justice? Please ask the lawyer. That argument has been raised quite a number of times. Let me try and get one more. Nana, I think we should support Martin Hamidou to throw more light on this. There is truth in what he has started. Thumbs up to him from Ernest in Nyahin. This one on Facebook says, and this is from Hart Will Armstrong. What's wrong with him? He was appointed as AG to perform a duty instead of taking his time to work. He started shouting here and there and now saw his removal from office. If he really wanted to expose corrupt officials, he would have taken his time to gather more evidence than what he's doing now. He should give us a break. Enough of the attention seeking. Thank you very much. Well, so these are general views from coming from people, but I've run out of time.
Yeah.
I need to get you back in. Why does Martin think that he shouldn't get immunity? I mean, he's questioning his immunity and the whistleblowing thing.
Well, I mean,
you can summarize it for me.
The closest it comes to is Section 18 of the Whistleblowers Act 206. The whistleblower is not liable to civil or criminal proceedings in respect of the disclosure unless it is proved that that whistleblower knew that the information contained in the disclosure is false and the disclosure was made with malicious intent. This does not mean that that person who is the whistleblower cannot be sued. It doesn't mean that.
I need to get lawyer back in because this is a big conversation and it has to continue. Lawyer, I'll try and get you back in so we continue this conversation. We need a lot of education on it. Folks, thank you very much for watching, and tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you so much. Lawyer, thank you so much.
Grateful,
thank you.